Did I? As long as it's, no, that's the first blooper. I'm just sitting there like chilling, waiting for them to walk in and nobody will walk in. I get mine about every 3 months. Like, do they keep, how I do, I'm throwing away.
Call the meeting to order, pledge of allegiance.
Okay, that's what I do.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson. Here. Councilmember Davidson. Councilmember Pryan. Councilmember Lawson. Here. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here. We have a quorum. No personal appearances, no unfinished business. That's wild. F, new business. One, motion approving first reading of Bill 2025-59.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Main Street Civic Center, a 3-lot subdivision on 1.36 more or less acres located east of Ellis Street and south of Main Street in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
We have a motion, I don't know why I'm doing that. Sorry, we have a motion and a second. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before this evening is a final plat for Main Street Civic Center, which is to replat and consolidate 16 original town lots and vacated right-of-way into 3 lots. This replat accommodates the old City Hall, and the City Hall Annex buildings on their own lots to match existing conditions. Having clean and clear legal descriptions for each lot also makes it easier to lease or sublease properties, as well as when requesting grants and other agreements for improvements, which typically include a legal description as part of the exhibit. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the final plat on October 7th. Staff also recommends approval of the final plat, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
We currently have a lease on one of these plats, is that correct?
Yes, we currently lease the old City Hall building.
Will this affect that lease in any way?
No, it should not affect it because the ground lease is still covered under this final plat with the description that's provided.
Yeah, Matt is correct. The thing to remember always about plats is all they are is describing property. So the property itself isn't changing. It's just how it is legally described from here on out.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead.
Kind of overlapping his point in what the city attorney just said, the carriage house is not owned by the city, correct?
It is on city-owned property, but I don't exactly know. It is on the Lot 2, which would be the lot that is with the old City Hall.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it is a BCPI-owned building. Just adding another
Yeah.
shade to this.
So they may have a ground lease for the building, but own the building
Gotcha.
itself.
Okay, just putting that out there.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving first reading of Bill 2025-60.
An ordinance adding section 40-3, subsection 31, short-term rentals, and amending section 40-1, subsection I, land use table, and appendix A, schedule of fees and charges of the Unified Development Code to accommodate short-term rentals.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Yeah, before this evening are UDC text amendments to accommodate short-term rentals in limited geographic locations, subject to special use standards and special use permit. Discussions regarding short-term rentals have been ongoing since June 2023, when the subject was first discussed with City Council as a work session topic. This timeline and the feedback received during those discussions have been included in the staff report. Overall, the proposed short-term rental standards are intended to protect predominantly residential neighborhoods, which was the primary concern expressed by council at the time. In order to achieve this, staff is recommending that short-term rentals be limited to the Old Town Belton area and residential properties with 3 acres or more of land. As an additional level of review and opportunity for public comment, all short-term rental requests are required to go through the special use permit process, which includes notification to all property owners within 185 feet of the property and a public hearing to be held by Planning Commission. This gives the City Council the final decision on the approval and location of all short-term rental requests. A short-term rental is for any residential dwelling unit rented for less than 31 days in the city, which is currently prohibited in the city outside of a hotel motel. The text amendments include adding a subsection to the special use standards in section 40-3 with subsections A through L, which include the standards that are required to be met for all short-term rentals. Those subsections address the requirements for location, ownership, registration, inspections, occupancy limits, development standards, operational and performance standards, and the collection of the hotel motel license tax. In addition to those items, illegal operation and the denial or revocation of a nuisance property is also addressed. The land use table is proposed to be updated to change short-term rentals from prohibited to allowed as a special use in all residential zoning districts, as well as the commercial zoning districts, which cover upper floors in mixed-use buildings, which are predominantly on Main Street. Appendix A is proposed to be amended to add a $70 registration fee and a $50 inspection fee. Those fees match the business license and inspection fees that are currently in place. In addition to those fees, there's the $150 special use permit fee, so a total of $270 in fees for the initial approval of a short-term rental as proposed. These standards have gone through multiple rounds of edits to bring forward a set of standards based on the direction that we've received. While we understand that this is a controversial land use with strong feelings on both sides, those who want to see more options for short-term rentals and those that don't want them allowed at all in the city, we believe that this is the best compromise to balance those interests. Staff envisions this set of standards can help determine how well short-term rentals will perform in the city and how we could revisit those after a year to see what changes should be considered going forward. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 7th, at which no one spoke in support or in opposition to these amendments. A majority of the commissioners expressed concern with limiting short-term rentals to a small geographic area in the city. And then after further discussion, the commission approved a motion to amend the text amendments to strike the subsections 1 and 2 in the first section, which limits short-term rentals to Old Town Belton and properties of more than 3 acres. The commission ultimately voted 6-1 to recommend approval of the text amendments as amended, which would allow short-term rentals citywide subject to these standards. Staff recommends approval of the UDC text amendments as submitted by staff. However, staff also believes that the special use permit process and the denial and revocation process for nuisances can address concerns if the city council were to recommend a similar amendment to the planning commissions to allow them citywide. And I will stand for any questions.
Go ahead.
Did you indicate that, and maybe I just, I'm old, I don't always hear. Did you say it's now going to be citywide?
That was the recommendation by Planning Commission. The city council
Yeah, oh, okay, but that,
has the final decision on whether or not they want to make the same motion or a similar motion. But as staff presented as in the ordinance tonight, it is just the limited geographic areas for Old Town Belton and on properties more than 3 acres.
so the planning commission recommended citywide, but you're still taking it to the limited area?
Yes, that is what we are presenting. However, as I mentioned, we believe that should the council decide to agree with the planning commission and take that recommendation, there are enough provisions in here to protect single-family residential neighborhoods with the provisions, and we have the nuisance and revocation process if needed.
How many, you say it's 3 acres and above, or over 3 acres?
Yeah.
Are there many spots in Old Town Belton that are 3 acres and
No, so it's all of Old Town Belton plus properties outside of
Oh,
Old
plus,
Town Belton.
okay.
So really, you're just looking at large lots, 155th and Kentucky, and maybe a few properties along Cambridge or
Okay.
Prospect.
Go ahead.
And they would be subject to the hotel motel tax, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, and will there be a process in place to make sure that those taxes are collected.
Yeah, they would follow the same process as any hotel motel currently, which they require a monthly payment be made, and we would confirm with finance before we reissued a registration.
Go ahead.
And regarding enforcement, one of the things that I saw was stated is that exterior evidence will be used. Can you provide some examples of what that would entail?
So in the code, we specifically said that there should not be any exterior evidence of a short-term rental other than there may be parking in the driveway. But no signage, no lit specifically advertising the property for rent or lease as a short-term rental, anything like that. So the goal is to have these blend in to a single-family neighborhood if they are present.
Floodlights and things of that nature, would those be counted as exterior evidence?
Don't get into lighting in here. Really, we don't get into a lot of lighting details in general in residential development, but that wouldn't be specific to short-term rentals.
All right. Even if it's specifically designed for people to go to a back door to enter, that kind of situation where it's otherwise, not.
That's always something that we typically don't do the inspections in the evening, but that's something that we could look at as part if it's in an accessory dwelling unit in a lower level or at the back of the house, we could potentially look at we would be looking at the ingress egress, so we could also look at lighting.
Okay. One of the things that I know that we have difficulty, looking at the exact addresses and finding those if they're not, listed on the exact listing. So I have some concerns about our ability to enforce unregistered, short-term rentals. Additionally, noise complaints require a neighbor being willing to go to the court to deal with it, which a lot of people either don't have the time or the money to invest in dealing with that noise complaint and dealing with that enforcement. And it's not necessarily something you want to do anyways as a homeowner. You don't want to be necessarily getting into, legal arguments with your adjacent property owners. So just something, I understand what you're saying about all the enforcement, and I appreciate that that's there. I think that's important. We shouldn't just say no enforcement, but I do have some concerns just about how well we can enforce because of the way the process would work. I want to also comment on this all or nothing mentality that I know that the Planning Commission, but I've also heard from other residents. The reason we have zoning, right, is because we don't want a Walmart built on Main Street, or we don't want a landfill going in a residential neighborhood, or certain areas of town to be allowed. A short-term rental might not make sense. So I actually, with all the concerns I do have, I think staff's proposal is the one that makes the most sense. I've looked at a lot of other cities that maybe not rely on tourism, but heavily utilize tourism as an aspect of this, and that is becoming much more common, and especially in this area. Actually, there's a lot of cities that are going the opposite direction, and they're just banning it altogether. So I think we need to be careful coming out of this that we don't want to, go full force into it. So I do appreciate staff's recommendation, and I'm not trying to ignore the Planning Commission, but just something I think should be made, we should all think about.
Go ahead.
So, based upon your recommendations that you're bringing here, can you give me an estimate about how many homes would actually qualify?
There's probably a few hundred in Old Town, and then there may be 20 or 30 on 3 acres that are outside of Old Town. So maybe 200 to 250 total homes that would qualify. But I also don't envision a lot of owner-occupied housing units transitioning to short-term rentals, unless it's just you have a snowbird or somebody who's going to do a short-term rental while they're in Florida for the winter. So I don't think it's going to be that common. I think our best estimates, I mean, we were expecting we may get 5 to 10 of short-term rentals at most.
5 to 10, is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, with the housing challenges that we already have with limited housing, I don't think a lot of people are going to give up housing for short-term rentals.
Good.
A couple things, Matt. So that, and I know that you're gonna do inspection. Are you going to do them every time someone leaves? Are you gonna do it, like a month at a time? I mean, typically there are 3 or 4 days per stay, which would keep, if you had 20 people doing that, that would be a pretty steady clip for inspections.
Yeah, so the way we've addressed it is it would be an annual inspection, but as part of that annual inspection, they have to post the license at the short-term rental, and there would be something on there that if there's any concerns with the conditions of the property, that a concerned guest could reach out to the city, and then the owner would have to give us access to do an inspection, just to make sure that they're still up to the standard that we inspected them to when they got their registration approved.
So are you thinking that people will do like, I mean, in Tennessee, they did a bedroom in a house that they shared with, I mean, is that something that that can be done, or is that something you're trying not to have?
So
or-
with this, it's either the entire unit, or if it's an accessory dwelling unit, so it's common that somebody may have a fully finished basement that's fully separate from the house, it would be run out of there. But the intent is not it's for the entire residence, essentially. It's not just leasing out a bedroom.
Is that clear? Is that clear in the application process?
If it's not, we can make that clear.
Well, no, I mean,
But-
if you've got a 6-bedroom house and you know people that are just driving through and need to spend the night or 2 nights here, I mean, that would be, that's feasible to do and it's quite profitable to do. So since we're limiting it, under you guys' recommendations to such a small area, are you hand tying anyone that may want to do that even more by saying that you can't have, someone spending the night in one of your rooms for 2 nights?
I will look into that
Okay, all right.
and see how that is.
And
If that's addressed, that was not something that really came up a lot in our review, and it wasn't anything that I've seen addressed in other ordinances
well,
that we looked at.
that's a reality of
Yeah.
Airbnb for sure. And VRBO, I mean, that's kind of a common occurrence in both those things. In my previous life, when I had a B&B, a real B&B, and then I had an Airbnb, there were lots of people that really just needed a place to crash for 2 nights. They didn't need anything involved or something.
Go ahead.
I guess a question that staff would have for council is how far do you want us to take this? What do you want to allow? What do you not want to allow? If you do want to allow something like this? I mean, yeah, the renting a bedroom is something that does happen on Airbnb.
It happens often.
And more effective than anything we could do as a staff in terms of inspections and trying to keep these properties up to date. Airbnb and VRBO have their own rating systems and
They sure
they're
do.
pretty dang effective at trying to keep those.
And you live and die by rating systems.
That's what I'm saying,
I
yeah,
mean, you
exactly.
do.
I mean, most of them aren't successful if you don't have a high enough rating. And so the city wouldn't be called on, I wouldn't imagine very often to try and get involved in the upkeep in these short-term rentals because that rating system would take care of that.
And when I did this in the past, I actually had them pay my taxes for me. You could actually put the percentage in of hotel and they actually just paid them for you. So that's an added value. But I can't imagine that we're gonna have 300 or 400 homes doing this. So I'm not necessarily in favor of keeping it just Old Town, because I think that there could be money made in, someone renting a bedroom out occasionally. So I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to see it happen citywide, but I also understand the concerns of it just being Old Town.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Yeah, to answer your question, Councilmember Thompson, the way that the ordinance is currently drafted, this would apply to the situation where you are just renting out a single bedroom. It applies to all single-family dwelling units, two-family dwelling units, upper-level dwelling units, and mixed-use buildings in the Old Town redevelopment area and approved accessory dwelling units. So it does not limit its application to when it is only a entire dwelling unit. So yes, it would apply if somebody attempted to just rent a single bedroom in their home.
And remind me again, Matt, how much the fees are total?
$270 for the initial fee, so that includes the registration, the special use permit, and the license and the inspection fee.
And that number reoccurs every year, or is that a one-time fee?
So it may go down the second year. It kind of depends on how we structure the special use permit. It's up to council ultimately when a special use permit comes to you if you want to extend the time limit. Typically, we build in conditions in there, and as long as those conditions are met, it's good indefinitely. But if there's a shorter review time that council wants to bring all of them back for review, we can do that.
Because that's a pretty significant hit. I mean, up front, that's a pretty significant hit, and, you know, that's a pretty significant hit. I mean, because there's fees that you gotta pay to be even in those organizations on top of all that. So that's why I was wondering if those were gonna be reoccurring.
Mr. Mayor. I also would like to point out for council that, and the public, that you don't see a big widespread growth of short-term rentals in areas that don't have a heavy tourism draw. And I mean, at this point, you can't say that Belton has this huge tourism draw, especially for overnight tourism traffic. And so, I mean, you're not gonna see this widespread, I don't wanna say that you're not gonna have any of them, you'll have some pop up, but the market's gonna dictate that more than anything that we could do in terms of how we structure this or don't structure this. And right now, there's not a whole lot that Belton would offer that would require people to, or that would push people to go into this business unless, you know, maybe short-term for the World Cup or for something like that.
Well, and I mean, without saying it rudely, is this much to do about nothing? So, I mean, that's kind of what, you know, you squeezed it down pretty tight. So this, to me, seems much to do
Yeah,
about nothing.
we've looked at Airbnb and VRBO and looked at their websites to see what's active in Belton. Obviously, in Belton, we have proceeded with trying to locate the specific address and pursue code violations with those. The last I checked, we only had 2, and we've already identified the locations of those. Raymore is not they don't have any restrictions. They're not doing any enforcement on theirs. Believe that last time I checked, they had about a dozen. And Grandview recently, a couple of months ago, adopted their own ordinance. I think they also had about a dozen. So just looking at 2 neighboring cities of comparable sizes, even one that's not enforcing, even without enforcement, they're only getting about a dozen of these.
I have residents that are down the road from me that less than 3 months ago had a big issue with this. So I wouldn't say that they think it's much to do about nothing.
I remember you telling me about it, so I agree, but it just seems like, I mean, it's a steep price to sign up for. So anyhow.
Anybody else?
I guess I'm a little confused. So this ordinance allows for the overnight people's homes in the designated area. But for some reason, are there things that we're saying we want to have looked at differently? Based upon the conversations I've heard?
I mean, you're looking at me. I can.
I'm looking.
Okay.
Okay, well, then I guess I do.
I think I can answer that question. Yeah, I mean, yeah, anything's on the table at this point, right? We have an ordinance that was presented by staff, and it's crafted a certain way. You have a recommendation that came from the Planning and Zoning Commission, which was a little different from what is being recommended by staff in terms of the ordinance. And the council could take one of those, both, a mixture of the two, do something on their own. I mean, this is literally at your discretion as a council. We're just pointing out all the potential issues and the pros and cons of each of these issues. That's what's being discussed.
All I'm trying to do is make sure I thoroughly understand what I would be voting for, because I don't want to fall into what happened before, that I thought one thing and I voted, and then I realized, that's not what I was wanting to vote, so.
The ordinance on the floor is for us to just have the Old Town area and then the extra properties that are in the city that are 3 acres or larger. And so that's what's on the floor. So unless there's an amendment,
Yeah.
that's what would be
If somebody
voted on.
wants something else, they need to make an amendment.
Well, that's what I'm waiting to see.
I mean, we haven't heard that, so.
I've been pretty, vocal with broad concerns on this. And I have heard the likes of not only the people I just mentioned down the street from me, but across the board. Don't get me wrong, I've heard, people in favor as well, but I'll just say, so I might take a bit of a hit here to say I can support this as it is, currently, but I would have, a lot of trouble supporting it broadly across the city, because I think we need to wade into the water carefully, and I think this is how we do that. I think we can give it a try and see what happens, and that's the kind of the thought process I have. And maybe if we look at this and we say, hey, this was extremely successful, then we should consider it citywide. But that's my 2 cents. Like I said, I might take some hits on that from my constituents, but I think, we need to consider, everything, and I think this is a good way to, we're ultimately determining kind of the future here of what this type of thing looks like, and I think wading into it slowly makes more sense than jumping head first.
And I'm not opposed to that. I don't mind, one way or the other. I mean,
I hear you. I'm mainly just I just wanted to respond to Councilmember White's question there. That's it.
All right. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Item 3, motion approving first reading of Bill 2025-61.
An ordinance approving an intergovernmental local match agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council Operation Greenlight Program for participation in the Advanced Traffic Management System software between the City of Belton, Missouri and Mid-America Regional Council.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up, sir.
Before you is basically approving an agreement, or our ability to sign an agreement with Operation Greenlight and Mark to buy some more software for the entire Operation Greenlight program. So the software altogether costs about $240,000, but because we only have 7 traffic signals in it, it's only going to cost us about $2,000 for our portion of the software. Operation Greenlight does a fantastic service for us by providing basically all the traffic engineering at our traffic signals, where they go and they actually do counts at the signals and they revise traffic timings over periods of time. They also have done coordination like across 163rd to make it operate better. And so this is an additional piece of software that they want to have that increases security in between their office and the actual traffic controllers, and does more computer stuff that I could not explain in depth exactly how they do it all. But that's what it is, and we're seeking approval to be able to sign the agreement.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2025-62.
An ordinance approving the 2026 intergovernmental agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District for participation in the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second.
This is another agreement with Mark. This is for our annual Household Hazardous Waste Program. Every year we have to sign an agreement with them to enter into and do the program. This is for the program next calendar year. It's always been highly successful. If you ever want to see what odd things people have that are household hazardous waste, come down and spend an afternoon there and enjoy seeing what shows up. So we're seeking your ability to sign the agreement. Happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
We got some really good data you had provided last year when this came around. Do we still get that from Mark? Can we still get access to that?
Sure can.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, motion approving resolution 2025-84.
A resolution authorizing and approving a contract agreement between the City of Belton and Superior Bowen Asphalt Company LLC for the Larkspur Circle Extension, Project STBG 3003-006, in the amount of $1 million, sorry,
$1 billion.
not a billion.
Damn.
Too many commas. $1,443,193.90.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second.
I know construction is getting more expensive, but it's not that expensive yet. So, this is the part 2 of our 58 and Peculiar Drive, construction project that we have. About 7 years ago, the city signed an agreement with MoDOT to do both a cost share agreement and an STP grant, which is now called an STBG. So it's Surface Transportation Block Grant, is what they call it now. And that particular agreement that we signed with them allowed us to do something very unique. Normally, for every agreement, there is just one single project. In this agreement that was signed, there are 2 projects, so they allowed us to bid it separately, which was for us to do the work on 58 and Peculiar Drive, 173rd Street, and then to come back and follow up with building Larkspur Circle, which is the continuation of Larkspur back and around to right behind Five Guys. And so it's basically a culvert and there's just a little piece of road and some sidewalk that's going in there. And so we have bid this. We bid it earlier in the year. The bids were both, well, the low bid was bad, and so MoDOT made us reject the bids. So we rebid the job, and we actually got better bids than we had last time. We listened to the contractors and what they wanted to see in the proposals, and so we improved it, and the price came out even better. So this will be just building that back section, and we're really excited to try to get it done. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Go ahead.
This is the same company that just finished all of our street resurfacing, is that correct?
That's correct. It's a different division in them, but yes.
Oh, okay. Did we have any issues or anything come up from that project? I mean, that was a big project, so I imagine there was some hiccups here and there, but I guess, any reason we, didn't like the outcome?
No, it's actually, if you go back to the 58 Peculiar job, when we bid that was actually built by this division of Superior Bowen. So we didn't really have any problems in that project. I don't anticipate having any problems with this one.
Awesome. It's good. It's always nice when you have extra data points, right? Like we do, so.
Correct.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, one motion, non-debatable to approve recommendation noted any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the current agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I would like to remove number 3.
I would like to remove number 4.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, motion approving resolution 2025-85.
A resolution approving a task agreement for services for 2025 emergency sewer repair between the City of Belton, Missouri and Kissick Construction Company.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second.
So somewhere in the past, Evergy had dug a hole to install a telephone pole. And when they did it, they actually went through one of our sewer pipes. And so apparently it stayed there, and it was there for many years. And then all of a sudden, the clay pipe collapsed. And so we were called because there was a problem with the backup. So we went out, we investigated, we found it, and it needed to be fixed immediately. We have Kissick under construction, and so they had to come out and remove several sections of pipe, dig it up, get the pole removed, get it all fixed, and put it back into shape. Once we pay Kissick, then we're gonna give the bill to Evergy. Evergy's going to pay us back. And so that we're not out any money in this. Happy to answer any questions they have.
My issue is Kissick. Are we okay with them after the last issues we had with them on the Hargis Lake issue?
Absolutely. They've actually done sub on 2 other jobs since then, and we haven't had any problems.
That's all I had. Anybody else?
Those extra data points are good.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving resolution 2025-86.
A resolution approving the Belton Police Department purchase of 2 new 2025 Ford Utility Police Interceptor vehicles in the amount of $88,514 from Shawnee Mission Ford.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. You're up.
Regarding, actually, I'll let you, I'm sure you guys know what my question's gonna be already. Is this part of the budget?
Yes, it's in the budget. It's, we have 110,000 in CIP.
And then can you, I know we talked about this, can you just give me a brief reminder? Is this part of the, like, is this a capital project plan where we replace the fleet every so often? Can you just walk through that real quick?
It's, every year, we put in purchase of vehicles to replace our fleet. We make the choice on which cars to replace based on mileage in a discussion that we have with the city garage. And so this particular year, we moved 3 vehicles. There was going to be, there was 4 vehicles. We removed 2 of them to move them to this year for 5 this year in this upcoming budget. And these were the 2 that were budgeted in this current budget year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council. Councilmember Johnson.
Just we're moving forward with the coalition for our events on Main Street, and things are coming together. We've still got a few items we've got to finalize, but we're going to have it ready to go come the mayor's Christmas tree lighting.
Councilmember McCallum.
I just want to call out all the awesome people that came out to Cleveland Lake to do the stream cleanup 2 weekends ago. And there's a bunch of trash hauled off. I was talking to Parks about it. They think there was less than we've seen in the past. So I would take that to be a very positive thing. That means, people are actually taking care of the park and whatnot. And I gotta imagine we've seen numbers increase since there's been all the conversation about the, more land donated by the Dryden. So anyways, just want to say thank you to everyone that came out and donated their time for that. It was a good event. I also just want to say thank you to everyone who has served. And as a reminder, there'll be a Veterans Day Parade tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on Main Street. In a rare situation, I don't have any new parks events that I haven't already mentioned previously. So what I'm gonna do is just remind you of the upcoming event, which would be I'm forgetting the name of it now. That's not children's. Junior, thank you. That's the word I could not think of. The Junior Craft Show that is coming up this weekend. It'll be at High Blue, and all the vendors are between the ages of 8 and 18. And it's a really cool thing. There's a lot of creative kids out there. So that is the thing that's upcoming, and I'll just remind everybody about Operation Santa and the barrels around town for food and toy donations, and that's everything. I got nothing.
I don't have anything.
I had an Arts Council meeting in September, had some real interesting conversations about could there be arts districts? Could there be, walkable art to see? We had very good response from them. The coalition is working to do a spring event in May, and we will have more details with that forthcoming, but it was a good meeting, and it's cold weather. I hope we don't get snow.
Go ahead.
It's coming.
Way to jinx us. Thanks.
He's talking to you, not
You never say it out
Way
loud.
to jinx us, thanks.
So I had scheduled a Ward 4 meeting, but a family issue took me out of state, and so I had to postpone it. I haven't had an opportunity to reschedule it, but I will reschedule it this week, and then we will start posting when that'll be.
I got a couple things. If you want to hear me speak even more, you can come to the State of the City address next Monday, the 17th at 11:30. I guess I need to know that, so I'll be there. And then Mayor's Christmas tree lighting is December the 6th. So that's all I have.
Just want to remind everybody that Veterans Day being tomorrow, we're going to celebrate all of our veterans, and the city hall and the offices are going to be closed. And so everybody can go and either serve the veterans a meal at the local supermarket or go to the parade,
I'll
or
be
both.
there. All right, K, items for review and discussion. Number 1, Belton Emergency Operations Policy.
Hello. I am here just to provide key updates and an overview of the emergency operations plan that I've been working on getting updated. It'll be presented again on the November 25th agenda for adoption. So just a reminder, the purpose of the emergency operations plan is to protect lives, property, and essential services during emergencies while providing the coordinated response framework for all of the City of Belton departments. We have it aligned with NIMS, the National Incident Management System, and ICS, the Incident Command System, for standardized operations. And the plan is to support recovery and continuity in government. So a few of the things that were updated and changed, the main big thing was the streamed layout and readability. I went through, reformatted the entire introduction, basic plan, and the included annexes and appendices, however you say that, for clearer flow, more consistent language. It's easier to navigate as well in both print and digital formats, which will also be something new with this version. Updated roles and department structures as well. There are several organizational changes that took place over the last 2 years. A new assistant chief position at Belton PD. It also has emergency management removed from underneath the police department as a standalone department, which also then led to an expanded coordination role in some of the annexes. Another thing, in each of the annexes, there is what I've added a responsibility matrix. This basically takes all the information that's in that matrix, or that's in that annex, and it gives a very clear table for people to look at quickly to identify who's doing what during an emergency. It's helpful for staff who may not be readily familiar with the emergency operations plan to identify who that lead or support agencies are, and then references the other related sections throughout the rest of the emergency operations plan. So it may be located in Annex E, but it's gonna say you're gonna use support from this organization in Annex I. So it's gonna help kind of with the better understanding of the plan and helps with the onboarding of new personnel too. That's just a little snippet example of what they look like. They are the last appendix in every annex. So consistently throughout all the annexes, they are located in the same spot and have the same format. Just next steps, like I said, adoption will be formal approval by City Council. It's on November 25th. Regular updates, these are done not just every 2 years, it's regularly reviewed, updated, led by myself in the Emergency Management Department, working with other city departments, identifying things that need to be updated, changed. Distribution, We will be sharing these with every department, our community partners, as well as posted for public access. Public access is going to be available online and at City Hall. There'll be a physical copy located in city buildings, as well as that digital format or digital version on the website, on the emergency management webpage. And then council review, like I said, we'll bring it back for review and updates every 2 years. Just make sure that we're all on the same page with it. There'll be regular exercises and trainings over the plan continually, so. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
When was the last time we did an exercise?
Department heads did one in December.
Oh.
We did a department head exercise. I've been working on updating this the last several months so that it can be then more training and exercises over updated parts with the different departments. So I know Public Works has interest in doing one specifically for them. And we've talked about doing bigger citywide type exercises that involve not just department heads, but who those next in line would be to respond to an emergency operations center, community partners, city partners, school district, so.
Depending on, the situation, I guess I would be interested in seeing what one of those looks like if that opportunity were to ever present itself.
Yeah.
But I understand if that doesn't present itself. But either way, thanks for that information.
Yeah, no, there's opportunities as like observers to come in and kind of see the exercise if you don't have an active role in what the response is, so.
It's just lately, I've gotten an opportunity to see behind the scenes a lot, like with the Public Works, snowplow training. Anyways, I think there's some value in it, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Item 2, code amendment.
Good evening, City Council. The parade procedures are codified in Chapter 13. It's part of the Motor Vehicles and Traffic chapter administered by the Police Department. The last time this particular code chapter was updated was 1981. Parades require a street closure parade permit, which is currently issued from the City Clerk's office, as well as Public Works and Police Department coordination. For the last few months, staff has been meeting with the Police Department to review and update the parade code, the procedures, and the parade permit. Staff has prepared a new parade application, which will be administered by the Police Department. There will be an accompanying street closure resolution and MOU resolution that will come to the City Council just like it comes for street events when we have street closures for events. The parade permit will also have a waiver and release of liability form for each vehicle participant to sign. There's a $25 application fee, just like with event permits. We've prepared a code amendment to Chapter 13 to align with our processes and provide a unified approach to closing a street for a parade. It will be coming to the City Council at the next City Council meeting, and Chief Lyons will speak about the code amendment.
What we'd like to, for consideration tonight and get your feedback would be, not only are we talking about moving the application process to the Police Department, we're going to be suggesting for all parades to be one consistent route. The new route that we have found that is very useful for us is going down Main Street, but staging the parade on Commercial. And so it'd be a loop from Commercial back to Main and then around, and then people can then get off vehicles or get off floats and change vehicles over there to exit the area. And so we've already approached the school district about implementing that. It has 5 officers that are required for that route and 1 sergeant. That helps us minimize the amount of overtime and personnel that we can commit to these things. And then we're also using 19 barricades from Public Works to accomplish this. That route is probably the best for us. We've priced this route out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,100 to $1,600 as far as city costs. During this process, we realized that our off-duty rate for parades is, we figure that based upon $50 is what we charge for off-duty events, but we, under the collective bargaining agreement, we have to pay officers overtime rates, which in some cases can be up to $80, and we're subsidizing basically or using city funds to commit these purposes. And so we're asking that also consideration to charge the entities that are having these parades if they're not city-sponsored, which we do not have any city-sponsored parades. The other thing is that parades, we're hoping not to have them on city holidays, so our personnel can be committed to being home with their families, or on weekends preceding holidays, and that would be for the people that have worked the holidays, have been scheduled to work the holidays. They would be off on that preceding weekend, and thus they usually spend time with their families because they can't spend time with their families on the holiday. And so that would be a change in regards to this as well. And then one of the other things that we're looking at, like I said before, is charging in regards to parades.
Go ahead.
I want to make sure I understand the city holiday situation. Let's just use Veterans Day as an example.
Yes.
So the proposal would be that the parade would not take place on Tuesday,
Yes.
because that's the actual holiday, but also not this previous weekend.
It would be you could do it on the previous weekend, not the weekend after.
Oh,
Yes. So like,
gotcha.
well, on Thanksgiving, that weekend is usually Thursday, Friday, no parade on Saturday.
Okay. I'm just processing.
Go ahead.
What are you thinking in terms of charging?
It would be the cost of the personnel that's at the parade. So if we get into a situation where we have volunteers, those volunteers might be officers that make upwards towards an overtime rate of $80, or it could be as little as $50. And so we would actually charge the overtime rate for the individuals to sign up for that. We always run the risk of individuals not volunteering for these events, which under our collective bargaining agreement, we have to notify them a specific time before the event, and then it would be the overtime rate of those being forced to work that event.
So you said about 1,100 to 1,600 on staging it on commercial and having, you said 5 officers and a sergeant?
Yeah, 5 officers and a sergeant.
And barricades.
And barricades.
And the barricades, yep. And we've discussed the barricades in the past of, the cost and the time. I'm just wondering if this will stifle some community parades. We have a couple that occur every year, and that they might have some sticker shock for that amount. Is there any opportunity that the parade could staff it with their own volunteers? Like if we had a guide of, hey, we need 7 of you to stand in these places and man the barricades, like, is that an option?
That would require also them to be trained to do that. Mm-hmm. And if anybody disobeyed them, they could run the risk of getting vehicles on the parade route or individuals hurt. And so we had this discussion when we used to use BEMA volunteers, which we no longer do, and they weren't really trained for that kind of involvement. And so I would think that would be the same with city volunteers, with just a citizen off the street. You would run the risk of that.
Go ahead.
You say you did talk to the school district?
Yes.
And they were okay with paying the extra fees?
Yes, so we talked to the school district, I talked to the superintendent. And they had previously held a route that went from Main Street to South Scott down to the middle school, and then offloaded there. That required, I believe, 9 officers and tied up more of our personnel in regards to that event. And so we're limited to downtown, which is less officers, and I think it's actually going to be safer for them as well.
Go ahead.
I'm like Allison. I know, I can think of St. Patrick's Day in particular.
Mm-hmm.
That's all run by a volunteer, and that will shut that parade down. So we've got to come up with maybe a city-sponsored parade or, you know, something that we could do to allow, because it's a very well-attended parade too. So that it just is a little concerning to me that, and I know we've talked about this and we know we've got to play some catch-up on this, but there are, and I don't know how you do some of it and not all of it, so, but that's a concern of mine.
Go ahead.
I'm also got concerns that we're gonna stifle the, use of the, you know, those parades have been, something that a lot of people, like and, come downtown and use. The other thing since we're talking about parades and street closures, what about these 3-day-long festivals and 2-day-long festivals? How is that gonna be affected by?
Currently,
The street events aren't affected by this parade amendment or the parade permit or the parade process.
So, here we are, we asked the city manager to come up with a much more consistent way for us to look at this process, and we're getting it, and now we're all concerned about it.
I will say that we took the process for the street events and applied it to parades, tweaking it to the fact that you have to have a route and you have to have officers and such, but they do mimic each other now.
I guess do you have any thoughts on how we can, like Councilmember Thompson said, you know, apply this but not for all somehow?
Well, there's a couple of ways we could handle something like that. We could do a city-sponsored parade type of situation, or we could just, you know, take the parades out of it when it comes to the charging of, you know, officers and just, you know, allow those to be part of the deal. You know, we're going to say these are or maybe we can grandfather those that are already existing parades and say, okay, any before this date, you get what you've had in the past in terms of support. Anything new, you're going to have to pay for the extra manpower. So there's a few ways we can handle that.
Because they're very well attended events. They're some of the best attended events we have around town are our parades, these little parades. So
I don't think staff is wanting to stifle any, you know, attendance of parades and limit events or anything like that. That's not the intention. And so we'll take whatever, you know, you guys tell us what you want and we'll figure it out.
For the record, I understand that that's not the intent here. It's the intent to make sure we're doing well with the tax dollars. Yes, understand. But in this particular venture, we may need to consider the value that brings in for the tax dollar base, if that makes sense. So.
Do you have any more?
Just thinking out loud here, with the St. Patrick's Day parade in particular, let's say there's 40 vehicles. At the highest rate of $1,600, it would be like a $40 a vehicle entry fee. Maybe we just discuss this now and let folks know that, hey, if you want to keep doing this, you're gonna have to charge for entrance or get sponsorships. You know, maybe a Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop gets a sponsor for their parade. I mean, there's ways to get everybody on board to do this, because it's not just about tax dollars, it's very much about safety, which I appreciate Chief Lyons saying that community volunteers aren't equipped to man the spots. So it's good we're having this conversation.
Very good point.
And there's ways to approach this.
Yeah, I think we just have to be creative in how we help people do parades, whether it's a city-sponsored event or the groups look for sponsors to help afford the costs of having the parade. I think that's something that definitely we can do.
I'm looking up towards the Christmas parade that's coming up, and I think that's grown a lot. Everybody would decorate and having lights going down Main Street, which I think is pretty neat. And I feel like if we start charging, I don't think they'd have money to do it. And if we start charging per car, you won't have people turn out. You might as well get away with parades, do away with them. That's my thought.
I've participated in parades where we had to pay an entry fee, so, I mean, it's not unusual. I think there's certain communities that do it, and so I think it's a possibility.
When, okay, so clear as mud, right? When is this gonna come to us as an official?
At the next council meeting will be the code amendment. The code amendment itself does not have anything to do with the costs for the parade permit, for the MOU delineating of the costs or responsibilities. This is strictly a code amendment. So even if we take the permit and take the thoughts back to the drawing board on the permit and the process, the code amendment still needs to come to council.
So it won't affect, there's no reason it has to affect the Christmas parade, for example, even though it's happening prior to.
Yes, I would note that the code amendments as addressed by staff are strictly dealing with the process right now of how you get the permit, because there has been some kind of overall confusion when it comes to the pricing. Again, the MOUs that we enter into are not being thought of as going away, so there is an opportunity on a case-by-case basis for the city council to determine what sort of parades are of the nature that either the city wants to sponsor them or the city wants to take some sort of more active role in ensuring the safety that Chief Lyons was just specifically addressing. And those are not part of this specific code amendment. They are the part of the process that this code amendment is attempting to implement.
Some of the items from 1981 don't pertain anymore in 2025. So it's, like Patrick said, it's a process. It's not these very fine details. So I would still expect to present that code amendment next week if that's okay.
Yeah.
I need it to change.
Anybody else?
It doesn't work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Item 3, GEP Investments, Transwest replat.
Yep, staff is currently reviewing a final plat for a lot split to allow an existing cell tower behind Transwest at 17327 South Outer Road to be on its own lot for long-term maintenance. I did pass out a map at your seats to show that location. The cell tower is at the far northeast corner of the site, which is tucked right behind Walmart. Access to the tower will be connected to the existing shared access drive at the end of the cul-de-sac at Belray Place. Platting it separately ensures that the tower, which currently accommodates 5 carriers, is protected long-term as they would own their own property, not have to be concerned with lease renewals. There was some concern that the lease was not going to be renewed, and trying to site a new cell tower is pretty challenging, especially when they have specific location requirements of being close to the I-49-58 interchange. So keeping it at this location is ideal. This item will be presented to the Planning Commission on November 18th and City Council on December 9th.
Go ahead.
All right, just to make sure I understand this, this is basically just saying that the Belray Place, that cul-de-sac will allow an easement or allow public access?
So
they own it.
So they already have an access easement to that property.
Right.
Currently, they're just modifying this, and they will own their property outright where the cell tower is, which will connect to that easement that gives them access to Belray Place. So the access is already in place, but rather than having to lease the land from Transwest, Transwest is selling them the property the tower sits on.
I guess my question, because that access there is almost, in fact, I don't know if I've ever seen it not locked and closed. You know, there's a gate there.
Yeah.
That's not going to change this, or is it?
No, it will still be a secured access, so they will only
And
be
to
unlocking
be clear,
that
I'm talking
gate
about like
when
the
needed.
Belray Place, that cul-de-sac off of there
Correct.
to Transwest. Because
Yes.
the only reason I say that is because I could definitely see people using that as a pass-through.
No, it will still remain locked.
Okay.
For security for the cell tower.
Anybody else? Item 4, rezoning northwest corner of B Street and Walnut Street.
And then on the other side of the piece of paper, we've received a rezoning request to rezone the north side of B Street between Walnut and Chestnut from C2 General Commercial to R3 Multifamily. This would allow the renovation of a duplex at 321 B Street, which is at the northwest corner of B and Walnut. Currently, this half block consists of about a dozen multifamily units in an apartment building with multiple duplexes. The only commercial property is the vehicle repair shop at 307 Chestnut, which is attached to the apartment building at 308 Walnut. All the residential uses are currently legal non-conforming, as well as the auto shop is legal non-conforming. In rezoning this back to R3, all the residential units would become conforming, with the auto repair shop remaining still legal non-conforming. The Planning Commission held a public hearing last week and recommended unanimous approval of the rezoning, and this item will be presented to council on November 25th.
Questions? Go ahead.
2 questions. So where's the property that is touching the apartment that's connected to the repair shop?
Right where that 308
Right where
is.
308, the 308
Huh,
label is.
Okay. I guess I didn't realize that was a 2-for-1 there.
Yeah,
And then,
I didn't either until I looked closely.
okay. And is this isn't going to affect anyone's ability to operate differently, other than I guess it will affect, because the apartment complex will be able to be remodeled now.
Yeah, and they've done cosmetic work, which is allowed. However, the reason for this is new ownership group took over this a few months ago. There's a duplex on the corner that has been vacant for at least a year, if not longer. And under the nonconformities of our code, if a nonconforming use has been vacant for more than a year, it can't be reused. So essentially, they were stuck with just leaving it vacant or trying to find a way to turn it into commercial use, which wouldn't be ideal in the middle of the residential units that are there. So this is, I think, the best case scenario. Additionally, this entire block is classified as mixed use under the comprehensive plan, which is predominantly intended to provide more housing in that zoning district. So this is closer to compliance with the future land use plan for Old Town.
Anybody
Thanks.
else? All right, thank you. Number 5, no chance gaming machines.
We are currently preparing an addition to Chapter 15 of the Code of Ordinances related to monetary prizes to address the growing presence of no-chance gaming machines in the city. This section would be in the offenses section enforced by the police department, and it would prohibit any person from maintaining or offering any entertainment device that offers a monetary prize. A similar ordinance from Springfield was upheld by a circuit court in September, and then some other jurisdictions, including Kansas City and Jackson County, are also discussing similar ordinances. If adopted, the ordinance would require no-chance gaming machines to no longer be available, which would include removing them from the premises or unplugging them. Those found operational would be subject to the fines that are provided in the ordinance, and we will be presenting this item to council on November 25th.
Go ahead.
And say that again, at the circuit court level has approved it?
Yes, at this point, this has been ongoing litigation for a not insignificant amount of time involving one of the larger producers of these sorts of games. The circuit court in Greene County upheld this exact verbatim ordinance, stating that it did not exceed any sort of limitations of the city of Springfield. Following that adoption, it was within 2 weeks of the Greene County decision, the city of Kansas City passed a verbatim ordinance as well. And then in addition to that litigation, there was also some federal litigation about, it was mainly between 2 potential businesses, and a federal district court also upheld the ability of cities to prohibit, in the state, applying Missouri law, this sort of situation.
Has there been an appeal?
There has been no appeal filed. The circuit court decision that was most recently made was based on, was actually a administrative procedure review. So while there is the potential for continued appeals, typically you don't see a whole lot of appeals from administrative acts, just because once one court's gotten to take a look at what an administrative body also decided, there was already a appeal, and so sometimes there is a question. Obviously, the city will continue to monitor that, and if anything changes in the scope of the decision, because obviously it is not binding upon the city staff will bring back an amendment to that plan.
And when was the decision of the circuit court granted?
It was granted in, I do believe it was mid-September?
Yeah.
Mid-September.
So the 45 days has already passed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's why I do believe you can note that Kansas City adopted theirs on October 16th, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is exactly 45 days from the date of.
That's what I was curious about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do we have many locations with no chance gaming machines here in Belton?
We believe there's about a dozen. Both the fire marshal and the building inspection team are looking at all those locations. They're typically the ones that report it back to me when they come across them. But there are about a dozen, mostly in convenience stores around the city.
Separate locations?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not a dozen total, but a dozen locations.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. Number 6, updated legislative policy.
Mr. Mayor and Council, at your desk, you have a copy of the draft of the 2026 City of Belton legislative policy. We're going to go through and look at the changes from year over year. MML does their own legislative policy. You probably are aware of that if you have gone to MML. And we have always kind of used them as our guide. We don't do everything that they have on their policy and our policy verbatim, because some of the things that they address are not applicable to the city of Belton. And there might be some things that we wouldn't be in lockstep with MML, even though that's usually going to be pretty rare, because they tend to be very city-centric. And so we'll just go through this real quick, and let's start with page 5. There's a sports wagering, one of the priorities. Well, we've got the sports wagering coming, and so that's pretty much a moot point at this, and so that will be removed. Go to page 7, if you don't mind. There's the addition of one, and this is highlighted in yellow. It should be on your copy. One word, schools. It used to say universities, and they've changed it to schools, so it includes schools that aren't universities. So that's, we've adjusted ours as well. If you go to page 9, under tax credit programs, they've added 2 new additional potentials for credits, brownfield tax credits and professional and amateur tax credits for sports. And that's G and H, and so we've added those to ours as well. And if you go to page 11, under community education, there's the addition to the word safe to development of adequate, safe, and available recreation facilities and programs. So again, not a major change. If you go to page 15, under finance and taxation, the assessment of real property, this is essentially a whole new section. It says the City of Belton supports a property assessment system that is fair, transparent, equitable, consistent throughout the state, and ensures the preservation of local revenue sources essential to the delivery of municipal services. The city urges the General Assembly to refrain from enacting further changes to the property assessment process until a comprehensive data-informed review has been completed. The city stands ready to collaborate with state leaders to ensure that Missouri's property tax system remains a fair, transparent, and reliable foundation for funding local government. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion about what's been going on in Jackson County, which has led MML to do a lot on this, in this area. And so that's why this one is on there as an addition. And if you go to page 17, there's a small section that the City of Belton further opposes any requirement to pay damages to nearby property owners when a municipality purchases or condemns land for public purposes, et cetera. That was in the policy already in a different section, and they moved it to this section. MML did, and so we followed suit. We think it fits well in that section. The very next page, page 18, there's another section. Again, further, the city opposes any legislation that would prohibit or restrict a municipality's authority to require a telecommunications, broadband, cable, and utility company to pay the cost of relocating, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is a section that was already in there and it was moved from a different section. Again, we followed the lead of MML on that one. Page 19, short-term rentals. The city supports statewide policies to clarify and reinforce municipalities' ability to collect local lodging taxes on short-term rentals through online-based reservation service providers. So we just added that. That also was an MML addition in their language. So page 20, state building codes and public hearings, both new sections. Both of those were additions from MML. The building codes is we want to support protecting local authority over building codes. There's been some discussion at the state level about doing some state guidance on building codes. Public hearings, there has been some changes in public hearings. The city of Belton supports legislation to clarify that once the initial notice of a public hearing has been properly published, the hearing may be continued to a later date without requiring additional publication. That's been a source of contention at the state level. They've had some discussion about that, to where if a public hearing is continued, they are asking, some of the state legislators are wanting to make the cities or local governments renotice the continuance rather than just being able to continue it. Moving forward to number 20, page 22, water quality standards. The city urges DNR and the EPA to base affordability evaluations upon households at or below a municipality's household median income, along with other community-specific affordability considerations. This whole section's about essentially trying to get the state to not enforce restrictive water quality standards that are essentially unfunded mandates, and without taking into due consideration all the other aspects as far as how we could afford to pay for it, even if we pass it along to our residents. And so that's what that's all about. Integrated planning. With regard to integrated planning, municipalities should have the opportunity to plan and prioritize their infrastructure for drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater needs. And again, this is along those same lines. And then if you go down to ammonia on the next page, it's the same thing. It's just, again, sometimes we get some of these things passed along to the cities through the state. Sometimes they're being pushed by the EPA. Sometimes DNR will take their own stab at it, and we're just asking for them to take into consideration the fact that it's extremely expensive to do some of these things that they're asking us to do, and we may not have the ratepayer base to support that financially, and we would not want to have to pass those costs on to our ratepayers. We've been working on our water rates really hard the last few years. And so any of these unfunded mandates that get pushed down and require us to make major investments in infrastructure are going to have to be passed on to ratepayers, and they're going to be very, very expensive. So that's that. Let's see. And I think that's it. Those are all the changes.
Page 6, there's a typo in my email address.
Your email address?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Last year, when we went down there to talk to our representatives about this, we were late because of the snow. And then when we got down there, the reception was chilly. And I'm wondering how we approach this different? Or do we not worry about it and just go and chit the chat?
Well, last year, if you recall, we tried to schedule and invite our locally elected state and federal officials to come to the city for a open house, essentially, to discuss our legislative policy and be able to ask questions, have open conversation. We had 3 RSVP and then 2 canceled before the event even occurred, so we ended up canceling the event altogether. We can offer that again. I mean, we can't force them to listen to us, right? I mean, we can say, here's what we believe is in the best interest of the city taxpayers. And do it in a formal way. but it's just like,
Well, I guess my biggest question is, how do we get their attention to talk to us about the stuff that we want to talk to them about?
that's the political realm, and that's more your area of expertise than mine, I promise.
I say we go ahead and try to schedule it again. Just,
Make the invitation.
yeah, make the invitation
And this is going to be on the 25th for approval. I'd ask if you guys have some considerations or for changes or things like that, try and get those to me ahead of time so I can at least have a draft for everybody to look at and to consider, if we're going to change much from this. If there's something you want to add to it, the same thing. Something you don't like in it, same thing. You've got it. Please review it and see what you think.
Well, so on that note, you were talking about all this water quality standards thing, because that's a very large section. And what you said over and over is largely because this may be a huge hit to our taxpayers, to our constituents. And I guess some people are going to say, well, yeah, I'll gladly pay more money because I want to make sure I have the safest, best water. So surely that's, I guess, how do we, I understand what you're saying, but how do we convey that it's not that we're trying to skirt and have bad water or less than, acceptable water?
You want to take a stab at this one, Greg?
No, he doesn't.
So there's two realms that you're talking about. One is drinking water that we currently purchase because we don't have a way to make water. But the other is really our effluent that's coming out of our wastewater treatment plant. And so there's a lot of discussion about what the levels need to be that leave a treatment plant and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. As we've go through administration, federal administration, to federal administration, to federal administration, the goals that they have continuously change. And some are realistic and some are not realistic. And so it's very hard for us at times to say, yes, here's what the goal is and we're going to try to achieve this. Ammonia is one of the two big things that come out of a plant that is a concern. Our plant is actually designed and we're actually able to achieve the goals that they want us to have, which is the rating, the number you're looking for is 1. We're below 1 in our ammonia. Phosphorus is the other item. We are nowhere near being where phosphorus has to be. So if we have to mitigate phosphorus at our plant, you're looking at multi-million dollars to be able to handle that. We're also, several years ago, had to put a UV system in it. You saw the UV lights and the water goes through the UV lights. That is a system that only works a certain period of time, and you're going to see in our budget when it comes up, we're going to be looking at replacing and improving our UV system. All these things cost millions and millions of dollars to do. So the regulations they put on us, does it make the water better? I don't know. I don't see it. There's, on the drinking water side, they're talking about PFASs. And everybody's getting worried about PFAS. It's in the news. It's the latest thing people want to talk about. But no one's really doing anything to be really concerned about it. The number one way you get PFAS into your body is by chewing gum. But no one is concerned about stop chewing gum. And so it is by far the greatest way you do it. Then there's other ways of makeup and other things that people use that contribute to PFAS that get in your body. And so, yes, we are concerned about having good, clean drinking water, but are we going over the top to try to create regulations to improve something that doesn't need improvement? There's an industry out there to remove PFAS. Are they pushing it to make money? There's a lot of great questions.
Yeah, I hear you, and I trust me, I understand what you're saying. Do you have something else to add?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So specifically with this legislative policy from MML, it's not about non-safe or non-quality drinking water. It's instead about ensuring that if the federal or state government are going to implement additional regulations that would cost the Belton taxpayers millions of dollars, that those regulations and requirements and the changes that are necessary to meet them are paid for at that level. So it is spread from, instead of what,
You want it, you pay.
20,000-ish, I don't know, how many water customers do we have? Instead of it being paid by 8,500 customers here in the city of Belton, it is instead paid for by 300 million Americans or 7 million Missourians. So it's less about non-safe drinking water or additional regulations. It's about ensuring that the cost
the
of that
funding's coming from.
is spread out over everybody from the governmental entity that is requiring it. Because I will say there are a not insignificant amount of my practice is actually just in water law. And there are multiple, you guys aren't this size, but multiple smaller communities that are to the point where they are having to close down water treatment plants and just hope that Missouri American comes in and buys them because of the regulatory costs, not the hurdles, just the cost.
That's how we have to explain that. Have to is maybe a strong word. That's how I think we should explain this when we're talking to the public about this. And by public, I mean our residents, right? Because that's a big, I understand what you were getting at there, Joe, but I guess my point is I want to be clear that we're not saying we should not worry about our water.
Well, and then one of the things that I believe that we had it in the policy that way is if you want changes, if they're wanting us to make changes to our system, we want some scientifically based data to support those changes. Some of the changes that are being made or being pushed from the federal level, at least at certain times under certain administrations, they're not really based on scientific data as far as is it really that different for the end user to change, to go from this small, super small fraction to an even super smaller fraction of whatever the thing is, ammonia, PFAS, whatever that might be, phosphorus.
Do we want to have, I guess my question is, are we intending to have some of that discussion on things right this moment? If you want them before it comes back up to us, because I have one that.
Go ahead.
If you already know of something that you would
Well,
like to be changed or tweaked or looked at, that's what this is for.
I'm not sure I'm in favor. I understand why we would, from a city perspective, if all I looked at was the city perspective, I understand why we would want to have the notice for a public hearing be only sent out once, and if it gets continued for whatever very reasonable, logical purpose, that we don't necessarily need to send out another notice. I mean, I know that we go above and beyond, I think, just about every notice that we give, from my understanding. Every time we ask the question, I know we're going further out than we need to from a yardage perspective, and I know we're usually going, above and beyond. So I don't know that we are truly, as a city, opposed to having to notify more. So I don't know if we really want this in there.
Well, you're right. We're not opposed to having to notify more, and we do take careful consideration and effort to make sure that we give above and beyond notice and not just the bare minimum of what's legally required. I guess what we might want to consider being opposed to is being forced to change those legal requirements, especially if you might be considering something that could have a timeline attached to it. Being forced to legally renotice something could push something back as many as 3-4 weeks, just because of a continuation. And is that in the best interests of the city? Again, that's a question we'd have to consider.
So then maybe we adjust this to say, that the timelines should then be, if it's a continuation, we say we're in favor of having that public notice, fine, but we don't want the timelines to be,
That's the whole purpose of notice, though, is setting that timeline. That's the point. That's why we don't want to legally have to be bound by it. I mean, there's nothing stopping us from providing more notice, but should the state be legally binding us to this? That's the point.
I guess that's the issue, is do you want the state requiring it, or do we want to require it within ourselves?
Well, but why would we be, this is, okay. I mean, sure, we can, I just don't know if this is something that we want to put in there if we're not even acting that way.
So I think one of the keys here too is from the MML policy perspective is all current legal notices are required to be placed in a paper. So and that also has a not insignificant cost a lot of the times if you're having to renotice meetings. You guys are lucky, you do have a local paper that meets the requirement, so you can publish it in that. But a lot of this is about if the city has to continue a meeting, what typically occurs is that, one, there would already be notice at that meeting because there would be a motion made to continue it to a date certain. That would also then later show on the city's website, which would show either the meeting was canceled or a new agenda for that item that says continued from X. But what this is getting at is don't require, if it's a 14-day notice period in the paper, what is being considered a lot of the times by the Missouri legislature is if that needs to be continued, then that means you have to re-notify it in the paper, which depending on dates of publication, I do believe your guys' paper publishes on
Once a week.
Thursdays. So now you've planned out an entire string of events to occur, and then because of a continuation that then you can only notice on Thursday, if it's 7 days and you wanted to have the meeting the next Monday, you would actually have to wait not 7 days, you have to wait until Thursday when it was published, then 7 days from then would be the next Thursday, then it would be the next Monday. So it would be a two Monday move, and you're not providing additional notice because you already provided that notice, not only in the paper.
Yeah, but I was out of town, I didn't see
But
it, I didn't get that paper. I mean, those things happen,
But
right?
that's why the city website, which the state legislature does not allow for legal notification under any circumstances simply on a website. The city already provides those notices on the website, which I would think that if somebody is interested in a matter that was continued, they would notice it on the city's website.
Well, maybe I
before
didn't know that matter was even taking place because I missed that paper, right?
Well, so then you missed the initial notice, and continuing it doesn't change anything. 'Cause
It
you would've
does, though. It
missed-
would, if I saw that continuation, right, because I missed the initial, now I know it's taking place, and I would have never known that it was taking place, and I got lucky because there's a continuation. So we're already doing things of that nature with this city when we go above and beyond with our notices. So I guess my point is, it sounds like, I agree, if we're bound to a 14-day or 30-day or whatever
which will be the
timeline,
requirement. It will not be anything less.
then we should be opposed to that elongated timeline. We should be in favor of a shortened timeline, but I'm not, I don't think it, I mean, the way in which we operate is not in a way that currently is suggesting that this is what we are in agreement with.
And
That's
I
just
will-
my thoughts.
I will say again, this is not based off of hypotheticals. This is based on what has been provided by the Missouri legislature in the past. It's not the first time they've tried to change this. It gets brought up almost every year. And it is a 14-day notice in the paper timeline is the only thing that the sponsors will consider, which is if it
So
is
then
a
let's clarify that. I mean, let's talk about what we then, as a city of Belton, think is the right thing to do here.
I do believe there is a section that already in the MML policy that calls out notification via
Well, but it's not here.
online.
I would also point, philosophically, do we want the state, again, micromanaging how we're doing what we're doing for what's best for our residents?
Well, I mean, I think we
that's
know
what
the answer
you're
to that.
locking us into if you're saying, okay, we're going to take that out and we're not going to oppose that. I mean, again, this is what we're giving to our legislators saying, hey, please, we don't want you to force this on us as a city. And so we can have our own policies to be as transparent as we want to be, and I would favor that. I'm not sure I would want to omit that from the legislative policy when that's the nature of what this is taking place, if that makes any sense.
And I understand I'm one of 9, and I could just be beating my head against a wall and doing much to do about nothing. But again, I think, and I don't think that, I think the city, there's a lot of things that the city should be having our own opinions on and managing that the state shouldn't be. But my point is I hear what you're saying. This is really for our representatives at the state level and above. However, I think this is more, there's more to this than that. This is, if I'm a Joe resident, I gotta stop saying Joe with your name, but if I'm a resident, I think this is a really good guide to say, this is what my city believes is good for the city. And so there's a little more to it than that, but anyways.
I will say that section caught my eye too and thought, well, if we're already doing it this way, why are we gonna say, hey, we support changing that? Just throwing that in there. I actually have a different question. Patrick, do you know the difference between the mayoral terms for third and fourth class cities?
So it depends on the third-class city. There's actually 3 different types of third-class city. There's third-class city commissioner, and third-class city manager. Third-class city manager is a 1-year term, and it's elected by the council. A third-class commission and third-class regular is a 4-year term, and then mayor in a fourth-class city is a 3-year term.
So we are that middle one you just said with a 4-year term.
Well, we are none of those, and the Missouri legislature has no ability to tell you what your term of your mayor will be. Because you're a charter city.
Sorry, thank you. So, okay, then why do we care if there are expanded term options for third-class city mayors?
A lot of this is not, again, the policy itself is, one, because we do utilize a lot of MML's work, is what we consider works best also for maybe some surrounding communities. And I would note that the term limit caps are a little cumbersome, and there's also been some talk, some cities have thought about term limits at the statutory level for a statutory city like a third class, fourth class. They are prohibited from having any sort of term limit because it would be an additional qualification not otherwise authorized by law. So that's what that's mainly getting at.
I regret asking a lawyery question.
I'm
I
also,
regret it.
I am also just
Thank you, Patrick.
a giant nerd.
So I'll just
Let me,
say,
could I address that one real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
For instance, Grandview would qualify, because I believe, what are they, third class? Fourth class. Grandview's a fourth class city, so they would qualify under this provision. And so maybe there's some small benefit to us supporting that by allowing them to have that term and not be capped. Maybe.
so we could also, and we're not facing this problem, but we could also potentially, change our size, whatever, and we could, that's always a possibility in the future, no?
No, just changing the size of the city does not bring you into a different classification. For example, fourth class cities, to incorporate as a fourth class city, I do believe you have to have only 1,000 people, but it has to be below the third class cap, which is 4,000. I would note that the city of Grandview is currently about 28,000.
Yeah.
So it's once you're incorporated,
So-
you don't automatically change. If the city of Belton, the constitutional provision specifically prohibits the Missouri legislature from enacting any measure that controls how city officials in the city of Belton are elected, qualified, or appointed. So they could not make any law that affects that for you all, but you could change your charter if you wanted to.
All right, I also regret it. But to Joe's point is, so there's really not a reason for Belton, maybe other than if Grandview really wanted us to do it,
Let me put it this way, if the council wanted to omit that section, staff would not push very hard against you on that one.
And I would also note that this, following with our other discussion about notices, that has more of a statewide thought, and the statewide general thesis behind the legislative policy and behind MML's policy is let local communities control their own governmental form. Do not tell us what to do. We understand what's best for our citizens. Do not require us to do stuff you do not know the facts on the ground, which is what that term limit issue and the notice issue all boil down to.
Anybody else? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1 pertaining to leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2 021.2 pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larky,
Yes,
Richardson.
Aye.
motion passes.